ask, though, I mean, this is all thrown into sharp relief when the two men are on stage debating, right? And it already feels like, the first presidential debate is set for June 27th. It already feels like the bar that is set for Biden to clear is so much substantially higher than the one Trump has to clear, which is literally, is he alive? Is he standing? Are the words coming out of his mouth? Setting aside what the words actually are.
Literally. She just had to throw that word in there, didn't she? You know what? I'm going to let that go. I'm not going to focus on that because we're here to talk about debates. We have the great Sean Spicer here of the Sean Spicer Show. All right, Sean. So we have this debate. And obviously the rules are absurd. They're cutting off microphones. Words out today that Biden is going to try to sit down. All right, they loaded it up for Biden. I don't know how Joe Biden can even sit down, Sean, when he's going to have Jake Tapper and Dana Bash's lips glued to his rear end.
Well, the funny thing about this, Jesse, is I think that they believe that the rules favor them. Trust me when I say this. Donald Trump knows what he's doing. And I have a feeling that everything that they've done will boomerang and end up benefiting him.
Okay, explain that.
Well, think about it. They think that somehow cutting off the mic is going to benefit Joe Biden. The more that Trump sticks to the issues and contrasts the record of him versus Joe Biden, the better he does. I actually think that all of this stuff they somehow believe will benefit Joe Biden. The more that he can stay focused on his record and that it's not a food fight like it was in that first debate in 2020, the better for Trump. The more that it's about issues, the more that it's about the contrast from his 4 years as president to Joe Biden's 3.5, the better. And so if they cut him off because they're interjecting on each other and just stay focused, that's going to benefit Trump. He just gets his points in. Biden gets flustered. The more that the focus is on Joe Biden and he has to stand there and articulate something that's not just a talking point. It's easy for him. Everyone talks about the State of the Union. Sitting there and reading a teleprompter is one thing. Having to respond to Donald Trump in the moment is quite another. I think that he might give a couple one-liners and he might stand up, and that might be a high bar for him to hit. But at the end of the day, him having to respond to Trump, who says, here's my record, here's, tell me about yours. He can't do that.
He can't do that. And setting aside the dirty comedy we played at the very beginning of this, isn't it true that Joe Biden does have an extremely low bar? Because everyone can see, Republicans can see, Democrats can see, everyone can see that Joe Biden is half dead already. Donald Trump is sharp. Look, whether you love Trump or hate Trump, Donald Trump is sharp, very sharp, has great energy still. Joe Biden's half dead. So if he just sits up there and doesn't poop his pants on camera, that's going to be seen, or at least it's going to be sold as a win, isn't it?
Except I think that Trump can lay out, here's my record, here's what I did on oil production, on energy security, on border security, on lowering taxes, and then go, and Joe, what have you done? And that's where I think the dynamic changes. As I said, State of the Union, all he had to do was climb on top of that rostrum and read out of a teleprompter and stop while people clapped. That's not very tough. But now doing it where Trump will be going back and forth with him is quite another. That's the contrast that this debate permits. So yes, Joe Biden has a low bar. There's no question about that. People don't have high expectations for what he has to do. But to your point, when you see that contrast in real time, Trump listing off his accomplishments, boom, 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 boom. Here's what I did. Here's what I had. And you see the energy that is contrasted by the two individuals standing there on stage together. It will be unmistakable who the leading candidate is.
Do you think that's what Trump intends to do? You obviously have been right next to the big man. You're very much in the know when it comes to this stuff. Look, sometimes he does that, sometimes he doesn't, and he's not exactly somebody who can always take advice. He's famous for that. You and I have talked about that before. He has done these debates where it didn't go well, couldn't control himself, just kept interrupting. He looked terrible. And he's done great at debates in other cases. What Trump do you think we're going to get here?
See, what you're putting your finger on is exactly right, Jesse. Which one shows up? I've been with him. I briefed him, for a while before the commander-in-chief forum that NBC held on board the Intrepid. I didn't think he was paying attention at all. I mean, I was sitting there going over statistics and veteran suicide rates and all of these issues from a military and a veteran perspective. And I thought to myself, oh my God, he's going to get his clock cleaned. He's not paying attention. And then he got out there and killed it. He has an ability to synthesize information like no one I've ever seen before. So look, can he show up and crush it? Absolutely. Has he done it before? Absolutely. But which Trump shows up is going to be the $1 million question. I have a feeling that, considering how that first debate last cycle went, that's still seared in his memory. And the idea that if he can come out and put this away in the first or second round, of which this is, I mean, you come out this early, Biden doesn't do well, he does well. I think Biden has everything to lose and Trump has everything to gain. If Trump doesn't do well, I don't think it kills him. But I think if he does really well and Biden doesn't do well, then they're done. I have a hard time seeing how you recover from that. Trump can fight another day. Biden doesn't have the luxury. They wanted this debate early to change the narrative and the trajectory of the race. If they blow it, it's over. And I think Trump understands that. And they're not going to let this day go by without taking advantage of those circumstances. So the question you're asking is the right one. Which Trump shows up? And if the one that we've seen before, who kills it at debates, shows up, then it's game over.
And that leads us to what the Democrats do if Joe Biden doesn't deliver. I honestly, all jokes and everything else aside and what it means for the country, he's really bad, Sean. Obviously, you see it. You talk about it. He's clearly getting worse as people with that condition, whatever his condition is, they don't get better, right? He's not getting younger. He's getting worse. What if he does go out there and poop his pants or can't talk or does any one of the various things he's done, wanders off in the middle of the thing? What's the plan? You and I have gone back and forth on dumping him, don't dump him. It has to happen at the convention. These people are in panic mode right now, Sean. What are they going to do?
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, I think that they are going to, he's holed up at Camp David for about a week ahead of this debate. I think you're going to do exactly what they did at the State of the Union. I mean, look, anybody can rest as he did for that and be ready. So I have a feeling, number one, they are going to do everything they can to make sure that the Biden we saw at the State of the Union is the Biden that we see at the first debate. That's number one. Number two, if he were to have a really bad night, you got to remember a couple things are happening. One, they expedited the roll call for the nomination. What does that mean? Because these dum-dums couldn't figure out when Ohio was having its ballot deadlines, they were going to miss it the Ohio ballot, if they didn't get him nominated earlier because they put their convention so late. So they are having a virtual roll call well before the convention so that they can get themselves on the Ohio ballot. That shortens the window that the Democrat establishment would have to try to make any kind of change. I think it would have to be an unbelievably profound screw up for anything to happen because they just don't have the runway to go in and change anything. And Biden's not going to do that on his own volition.